Hold on to your hats. Goodness me, Sterling! What can't you invent, you relentless scallywag? Marvelous!
Oh, no, this is not good.
So I think it should go without saying that out of all the characters that we're allowed to pick on Bleeding Edge, the most interesting one by far is probably gonna be Kulev. Kulev is the one character in the game whose design just begs so many questions. Having a unique character also implies on having a unique playstyle. Kulev, though he is a snake, rather than being up close and personal like most snakes would, he surprisingly plays a lot of things at a very far distance with devastating consequences, especially if you're not paying attention to him. Though the characters in Bleeding Edge are defined by their stage names or their tag names, they actually have real names themselves. Kulev's name is actually Dr. Ignatius Wright. But for the sake of this video, I'm just gonna call him Kulev if you don't mind. Based off of what we can gather from the game's bio about Kulev, he was certainly a man that was obsessed with the idea of immortality, though he did somehow find various other means of prolonging his life to actually survive long enough to live to be 126 years old. But upon his death, he actually agreed to give his entire subconsciousness to his closest friend, Sterling Taylor. Remember this guy's name because it's gonna be important for something later on. Sterling then used his brilliance to put Kulev's soul inside of a digitized snake, which actually worked. Kulev, however, decided to, for some reason, don his old corpse, though I'm very unsure why he chose to do that, other than the idea that Ninja Theory simply wanted to have a sick character design inside of their game. Kulev's charm simply works around his accent as well as a good use of eccentric dialogue. But that still doesn't help me understand what a Kulev is. Personally, I've only known the name Kulev for my time spent playing Bleeding Edge. So instead of us asking who is Kulev, I think we should ask what is Kulev. And to be honest, the results are actually pretty scarce.
These are good omens.
So to start this off, I think we should actually look up Kulev's actual name rather than Kulev himself. So, Dr. Ignatius Wright. Honestly, I don't think that would lead to anything other than Kulev's actual name in terms of Bleeding Edge. However, the word Ignatius, if you look at it, it does indeed look like the word ignite. As a matter of fact, if you were to take the name Ignatius and actually try to get its real meaning, it is a male given name of presumed Latin origin, and it's believed to mean fiery one compared to the word ignite. Now, what does that mean in terms of Kulev? I don't necessarily know, but there is one small hint inside of his character video that does kind of relate to it. At the end of the video when he's referencing Sterling and he completely burns down his lab, there's fire around him. So here's the thing, if you actually take the time to notice this during gameplay, Kulev, when he lets down his healing circle, though the rod puts out a green mist, if you look at your enemies, they're actually on fire. Not entirely, but if you actually look at their legs beneath them, there's a purple flame underneath them. So I think it's fair to say that Ninja Theory kinda had a good idea going with this guy in terms of like his name actually meaning something for his character. I'm not sure whether they did this on purpose, but in my opinion, that's actually a very cute little nod to his character as far as who he was before he became the snake. Granted, I understand that that's not enough to actually determine who Kulev is in terms of his actual personality. If we take the time to actually understand what the name Kulev means, there are a lot of sites that have different meanings, some of which don't make any sense, some of which have no relation to Kulev in general. However, there was this one site that did give a funny nod to his actual work life in terms of what the name Kulev means in terms of, working. I find it really funny that namekun.com, if you scroll to the bottom in terms of what Kulev means in relation to work, It actually says fulfillment for this person depends on professional success, voluntarily, purposely effective, never fearing work overload, giving your body and soul to projects or activities that you love, always leading the ship with a good sense of appropriateness and repartee, demanding to yourself but also with others you are honest and fair, being passionate, you need movements, and etc, etc, etc. However, the fact that they actually use the word body and soul as well as ship, I'm not going to say that Ninja Theory looked into what the name of Kulev is. However, I find it really ironic. And that's the thing about understanding Kulev. A lot of things about his character are really ironic. And when I say ironic, I mean this next piece of evidence is really ironic.
A candle in the darkness.
So, I have another piece of evidence, but I'm not gonna lie, it's very weird. So, there was a movie called Lockjaw: Rise of the Kulev Serpent, and I'm not gonna lie, it is a terrible movie that for some reason has DMX in it, not sure why. Anyway, I'm not gonna waste the entire plot of the movie itself, but the important thing that you should know is, as far as the main synopsis of this movie, it is in fact stated that using voodoo, an ancient African priest creates an indestructible evil drawing tool to be used for revenge. The Kulev stick is rediscovered by a young boy in modern day America, and it conjures a giant serpent that kills his abusive dad. Terrified, the child buries it, and the monster hibernates in a sugarcane field nearby. 20 years later, however, the cursed instrument is dug up by his wife, who was accidentally killed by college teens vacationing in their small rural town. Feeling vengeance, he draws again the monster, which awakens and starts killing them off one by one. Now the only thing that stands in its way is an Army Special Ops vet and a monster hunter named Nick Karibo, who has been waiting for Lockjaw to return. Okay, granted, that synopsis was a very weird one, but the name of the movie itself is called Lockjaw: Rise of the Kulev Serpent. Now, does that mean that Ninja Theory has a very liking to this movie? I wouldn't be surprised because a lot of developers like to throw in hints and Easter eggs to their favorite movies and their favorite past franchises from when they were growing up. So, speaking of past franchises, there's a little something that I thought that you guys should probably know. Some of you have probably noticed this, but Kulev's snake reminds me of the snake from The Jungle Book. The Jungle Book is an old Disney movie from back in the day, and I'll admit I did used to watch it back then because I enjoyed it. I forget what the premise of the story was, but in that movie, the snake can actually hypnotize people. Granted, I think it only works on people who are very young and inexperienced, but regardless of which, the snake has the same ability as Kulev. And again, I found it really ironic that Kulev and this snake would have a little bit of a similarity. So I did some research and I did some digging up, and Lord and behold, you'll be surprised. The guy that does the voice acting for the snake in the Jungle Book, his name is Sterling Holloway. Again, this is a reference to his friend and colleague Sterling, who put his body inside the snake in the first place. But I find it very ironic that all of these clues would kind of lead into this. Now you may be wondering what happens when we type in Sterling Taylor into Google. The only thing that pops up is the reference to Bleeding Edge, as well as someone who's like an Instagrammer or something like that. And that has nothing to do with this video at all. Getting back to Kulev, however, there's still one more thing about his character that I just don't understand. What is with the fucking pirate costume? And again, sorry for cursing, but this is the one thing about his character that I just did not understand. Though I sometimes call his character Captain Kulev, but it's simply just because of the fact that during the update he got a pirate costume. But for some reason I can't actually figure out what the pirate costume has to do with him himself. But I decided to do a little bit of some digging and some research, and it turns out there may not actually be a correlation between Kulev and why he has such a high favoritism towards talking like a pirate, other than the fact that maybe he sailed across the seas in order to actually find the voodoo magic that he was looking for to give him his immortality. However, from what I understand, similar to movies like, Pirates of the Caribbean and stuff like that, pirates, zombies, and voodoo for some reason go very, very hand in hand. Now, granted, there are different scales of voodoo, or there are different branches of voodoo from where it originates from. And from what I understand, Haitian voodoo has a lot of misconceptions of being tied to raising the dead, aka perhaps maybe necromancy. But regardless, when it comes to looking at Kulev's pirate costume, it's a very big amalgam of everything that I want to say is happening in the movie genre for pirates in general. Like I said, I don't know why pirates and voodoo just somehow just goes together perfectly, but that's probably the only thing that I could think of in terms of why Ninja Theory chose to have Kulev wear a pirate costume in the first place. So like I said before, don't get me wrong, I'm aware that everything I'm saying could be just a total coincidence and has nothing to do with each other, right? However, there is one final piece of evidence that I have that is totally not a coincidence. Believe it or not, there's one more piece of evidence that I can actually give you guys in terms of how Kulev actually came to be inside of this game, period. So here's the thing, it's not an unproven thing that Ninja Theory kinda did rehash some ideas from other games. It took me a while to realize this, but as it turns out, Kulev is actually a reskin of a character from another PvP game known as Paladins. Now granted, I don't play Paladins, but it's fairly easy to see that Maldamba is exactly what Kulev is. Maldamba has the ability to place down healing circles that not only heal, but they also damage their enemies. Not to mention, the snake on his arm also has a ranged projectile as well, which is exactly what Kulev's basic attack is. Like I've said before, Bleeding Edge is indeed a bit of a rehashing of other PvP titles, but in my opinion, Ninja Theory has a very good way of designing their characters and giving them some actual feel so that they feel like actual people rather than just characters that are just supposed to be inside of a video game. You know what I mean? Regardless of which, I'm actually really happy that a character like Kulev was implemented in the game, and I'm actually really happy that I've been able to go this deep into his character's bio. As far as every other character on Bleeding Edge, I'm not exactly sure what they're actually about, but obviously I'm gonna take the time to probably break them down as well. Anyway, my name's Chaos the Gamer, and yeah, GG's all around. I'll see you guys in the watch zone. Get out there and cause some chaos.
Got you in a hot spot.
Like the X-Man, I'm way better. I love the rugged and rough.
Marvelous. Good omen.